So welcome everybody to this this month's training with our guest trainer, Cris Chico. I'm excited to have this guy on for this month because I've been following him for several years. I'm a fan of his YouTube content. So if you've been on YouTube, I'm sure you've seen his face because his YouTube thumbnails are probably the most creative I have ever seen out there. He's spot on and knows how to grab attention. And so this month, we're all going to kind of dig into social media and Facebook. And Cris is the guy to really share a lot of strategies because he spent a lot of time. He's worked with a lot of investors and he's kind of perfected the strategies because he even uses it himself. So Cris, thank you so much for taking the time to be with the SC family and kind of teaching us some new things that we haven't implemented in our business before.
Well, I appreciate you having me come on, number one. Number two is the crazy faces come because of a extensive and volume of caffeine that is ingested into my body every single morning with intensity and velocity. Yeah, I choose somebody. I have a good friend of mine bought a coffee machine the other day, like an espresso machine, and I say I judge my coffee machines by the time it takes me from getting up to then having my mouth taste that first cup of coffee. You know, if it doesn't happen within a minute, then there's a problem. So I'm good. I'm happy to be here and excited to share with everybody here. I kind of what I put together, maybe about 40-ish or so minutes, and then I'm definitely open and available for questions if we wanted to answer some questions. So maybe as you have questions, type them into the box, and then. But if you wanted to ask me something midstream, you're not gonna throw me off.
No worries. Yeah, for usually just kind of we go in that format. So everybody, if you do have questions, definitely wait till the end. We'll have a little Q&A, and then who knows, maybe I might interrupt you a couple of times with a good question if I come up with something.
No problem. No problem.
All right. Well, yeah, take it away. The floor is yours.
So we're here to talk about online advertising, specifically with Facebook. However, we have to look at a slightly different model of us doing business in order to facilitate us doing digital marketing. So the one thing I do want to start off with is say that, everybody here is an investor, but really you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're just using real estate as, and you can hear me okay. I just want to make sure that, let me make sure that I have the right microphone. Yeah, you should be able to hear me okay, right? Clear? Otherwise, actually that's a dumb question, because if you wouldn't be able to hear me okay, you would have told me that like 10 minutes ago. Anyway, we go on. We're entrepreneurs. And so what that means is that then everyone here should always be looking at, you should be looking at 2021 of how can you increase your capabilities as an entrepreneur? How can you become better equipped to handle whatever comes in the market, better equipped to make decisions about what marketing strategies and how to implement those marketing strategies, et cetera. And one of those things I think that will help and increase everyone's capabilities is the ability to learn online marketing. So my sell here for you today, and I don't have anything to sell. This is not like I'm going to sit here for an hour and go through, tell you about 30 minutes of my life story, how I was completely broke and nobody, and then all that other jazz. But my sell here is that I think everybody should know how to go out and find clients online, how to go out and use a platform such as Facebook and Instagram, and how to use Google in order to figure out how to gain prospects for their business. And then for you guys here, for everyone here, it's a real estate business, but platforms change, things change over the course of time. So new platforms will come up, and once you learn one, it's easy to learn the others. It's like if you know how to do wholesaling, and so you know how to fill out a contract, and then let's say you want to learn how to do creative financing deals. Well, you can build upon the knowledge of wholesaling and wholesaling contract to make learning that this new strategy a little bit easier, right? So you're always using a foundation and extending it to something else, and that's the same thing here. So my big sell for you today is, number one, is I want you to expand your horizons in terms of what your market is, and number two is I think everybody here should learn online marketing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share my screen. Let me just let's see here. Let me just move this here, and I'm going to share my screen, number two, and I think everybody should be able to see me. Just do me a favor, everybody, just a quick, make a comment here on the chat, I think, just to say that you can See my
Yeah,
screen?
I can see it. So if
Okay.
anyone else, if you can see it, just go ahead and type 1 in the chat so we can make sure.
All right, perfect. Great. All right, so what I'm going to talk to you today about I'm known for in the niche, and a lot of people are familiar with the term virtual wholesaling. Now, this is kind of an expansion of that, and I'm going to be talking about national wholesaling and expanding your market region, and because when online, if you're incorporating online marketing into what you're doing, then you also need to consider this here as an option to be able to put those two together and to be able to have success with it. And so just a quick introduction. I'm not going to make this long. I guarantee you this will only take 60 seconds. This is me, the guy with the bald head. I don't know if you can tell that. And then my 2 daughters and my wife here. I live in Florida. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. If you can tell, I have an accent. I never knew I had an accent until I went somewhere where there weren't that many. So somebody told me I had an accent. I know that's a bad joke, or maybe people attempted humor, but I'm from Puerto Rico. I got my real estate license in 1990. So I've been around a long time. You don't need a real estate license. I'm not proposing anybody go out and get a real estate license unless you really want to, but we're not going to get into that. But I've been around for a while, and I'm considered in the niche of real estate as the godfather of virtual real estate investing. And that's because in 2007, I actually coined the term virtual wholesaling. I was doing wholesaling virtually around 2006-ish, 2005. And that was just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective. You guys have it easy now, really so easy. I was doing virtual wholesaling when there was no Google Street View. Google Maps was very rudimentary. For us to get pictures of a property, we had to find somebody on Craigslist that actually had a digital camera, that actually knew how to operate it, that actually knew how to, what to do with this thing, and finally to get photos of the property. And they had to physically go, and it was a big to do. So you guys have it easy right now, but that's when I started doing virtual wholesaling in 2007. And then, the thing that I focused on when I was doing real estate investing back then was direct mail. So I did a lot of direct mail. These are the type of postcards that I created. Some of you might be familiar with them. They're kind of like really old, really quirky. A lot of verbiage. The address and the names of the person merged into the postcards, which back then was very difficult to do. Nowadays is very, very common. And then we were getting so many calls that coming in, right, from these postcards, that we had to figure out a way to field the calls. And that's when I started to use 24 recorded messages. So I was one of the first guys, if not the first guy in the niche, to use 24 recorded messages in order to field all the calls that were coming in. And then I created these postcards as a second version and a way to innovate. These are called blind copy postcards. They say third notice, final notice. Some of you may have used these postcards, and they work really, really well. And so I've been around for a while. And the strategy that I'm not doing any direct mail right now. Some of you might be doing direct mail, but for me, direct mail, the performance for direct mail started to diminish. And that's because there was more and more people coming into the niche and more people mailing the same list. And so now it was a very crowded channel, and the costs were going high. And so I needed to figure out a different way. And this is the new way that I'm going to show you in terms of what we're doing and what we're teaching our students. And step one is that I'm going to share with you how to adopt a mindset of a nationwide investing model as opposed to a virtual or a local. Right? And there's a distinction there between virtual and also nationwide. We're going to use online advertising in order to find motivated sellers. Then we're going to go ahead and the volume of the leads are going to be such that then we're going to go ahead and cherry pick the best of those leads. And then, simply just go out and find buyers in each of these areas in order to be able to sell the deals. And I'll share with you how will we go out and find buyers in markets that we know nothing about or never done any deals. So let's go ahead and go through the strategy step by step. I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. So let's talk about the whole concept of nationwide investing model. So, in real estate, everybody, the old saying is real estate is always about location, 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 right? And so this here model is basically location less. There is no location. And so what most real estate investors do, and then maybe this is what you're doing or maybe have done in the past, is you decide that you're going to go into a market. Now that market could be local, could be your local area, or could be a virtual market, but you're still picking one market. You're still saying, hey, I'm in California, I'm in San Diego, it's too tough to do deals. I'm going to go into Oklahoma. I'm not saying you should go into Oklahoma, I'm just using that as an example. And then you're going to go ahead and then pick a city, Oklahoma City, perhaps in that market. Even though you're virtual, you're still picking one particular market. And then you're going to go ahead and attempt to implement several lead generation strategies in that market in order to get deals, right? So you may incorporate direct mail, text messaging, cold calling, etc. And so the problem with that is that it's very difficult to pick one market. Why? Because I've done it myself, where you start looking at charts and graphs and looking at, because you want to pick a market that's good, right? A market that's going to give you juice, that's going to bring you deals. And so you're going to do all this research, but at the end, you're no better off because it's very difficult to do that. And you might as well just throw a dart on the dartboard. And so what our new model is that we eliminate the risk of selecting the wrong market, because we're allowing the marketing, we're allowing the marketing that we're doing to let us know and to dictate where is it that we want to do deals in. So it's kind of like the reverse of the market selection, right? Keep that in mind. So in the nationwide framework model, if you're with me and you say, hey, I want to go into Oklahoma, and say that in the past you would have to pick a city in Oklahoma, and you say, I'm going to do deals in Oklahoma City, whatever the town is. In this scenario, you would pick the entire state of Oklahoma. So you're going to go ahead and say, I'm going to do deals in the entire state of Oklahoma. Same thing with me. I'm in Florida. I normally would say, hey, I'm going to do deals in Fort Lauderdale. I want to try to find deals in Fort Lauderdale. Or maybe I'm in Fort Lauderdale and I say, I want to find deals in Tampa. So I'm picking a market, not this way. Here I'm saying I'm going to do deals in the whole market and then the whole state of Florida. Now, if I'm intermediate, then I can decide that I want to do deals in selecting 2 to 3 states. All right. So that's a little bit more difficult. Why? Because of the fact that if I'm selecting 2 to 3 states, and every state have their different nuances of doing deals. Right. So in other words, the way of closing on deals, et cetera. So now you have more things to account for. So if you're a beginner, I recommend just picking one state. Advanced would be selecting the entire country. I put an asterisk because it's not the entire country, because there's a lot of places that just have a lot of land and not much going on. And so really it's, selecting the largest 15 or so metropolitan, 15 or so states. Right. That's what we're doing. Now, I do recommend you staying away from certain states if you're starting out. For example, California people. California is always a difficult state. Prices are high. If you're doing wholesaling, for example, it's difficult to gauge values because so many of the areas, they change very rapidly from 2 or 3 blocks to 2 or 3 blocks over. Like you really got to know values. If you're in California now, then if you really want to do California, you would select the entire state and maybe group that with maybe another couple states. So now you have a mix of different locations, right? You're not dependent on just deals from California. New York is a fairly difficult state to do deals in. A lot of the deals need to go through attorneys. They require large deposits, etc. In Illinois, you need a real estate license to do wholesaling. So that's another state that I would say shy away from. You can later on, you can do one deal in Illinois before you need a real estate license. You can get one later. I wouldn't recommend you getting one right away. You could just do deals outside of Illinois, and then eventually you might decide, well, I don't need to do deals in Illinois because I'm doing deals all over the place, and so I don't need to get a license. So it's up to you. Now, one question that I do get asked is, hey, aren't I going to get a lot of leads in areas where there's no demand, where there's just a little small town in the middle of nowhere that basically I cannot get a deal sold? Because a lot of us think, oh, I got to be in a large metropolitan area with a lot of buyers and a lot of activity for me to have a chance of selling a deal. And, we have a lot of students that do deals in really small markets. There's an example of a student that did a deal in Johnston, Pennsylvania, population size of 20,000 people. Another couple of deals, one in Whitewright, Texas, population size of 1,960. And another deal here for population size of 933. So deals can be done in these really, really small markets. And I have, students, a ton of students doing deals nationwide, et cetera. The thing to keep in mind is this, is that in a lot of these small markets, if you are, the benefit to what we're doing here is that these are markets that you may have never considered. These are markets that perhaps you had not thought. We get students all the time that say, Chico, I got to, they tell me that they did a deal, and I'll ask them, hey, have you ever done any business here before? This town that you got this deal in. And many times they'll tell me, Chico, I have never even heard of this town before until the lead came in. I didn't even know this town existed. So keep that in mind, is that you're getting deals in a lot of places that you didn't even know existed, may not have thought of, which means that other investors have not thought of that, and which means that then you're not going to have as much competition as you would with other conventional channels because it's less crowded. That's the nature of you going into, say, for example, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. There's a lot of competition there, but there might be other areas around there that people want and people would be willing to buy as an investment property, but just not really heavily targeted. So this sort of methodology here allows us to cultivate those markets and to identify them. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention before I go into the ads portion, because once you identify one of these smaller markets, and we do that with the ads, then you can go in and implement some of these other strategies like direct mail, using text messaging, using cold calling if you're doing cold calling. I prefer text messaging over cold calling, and less laborious, and you can it's just a much better thing. And obviously the guys at Smarter Contactor do a great job of that. So I recommend that. But you can, once you have a market, then you could dig into that. Now, what we're not doing on Facebook and Instagram, we're not posting, we're not trying to get deals organically. We're not posting on groups and spamming people and all this other stuff. What we're doing is we're running ads. Running ads that look like this, and I'll explain to you more about how these work. But you're using image ads, simple text ads that we can create in a matter of a couple hours, get the whole thing set up, and we're paying Facebook to show our ads to people. And the great thing about Facebook as being the beginning platform for you to learn online marketing is that it's one of the easiest platforms to get going. Number one, like for example, Facebook allows you to create what's called a lead form, so that you don't even need a website. You can go ahead and start running ads where all they do is click on a button, a form opens up that allows them to enter their information right there in Facebook. And then once they close it, they go back to watching cat videos on Facebook or whatever they were doing. But now you have a lead. And the benefit also with Facebook is not only is it easy to set up, but also at the same time, a lot of the other platforms will copy what Facebook is doing in terms of their ad interface and how they run ads and everything else. So once you learn this, it's easy to learn the others as well. And like, for example, if you've ever been inside of Snapchat's ad platform, you'll notice that, oh my God, it looks very similar to Facebook's. And so again, once you learn one, you learn the others. And Facebook is also, recently today, I think there was a news article about them being sued because they gotten too big and all that other stuff. People ask me, do I pay attention to that? I don't pay attention to that. I mean, it's the same thing with Microsoft. The whole U.S. Justice Department was up Microsoft's butt a couple many years ago, and it's just the nature of the beast. But bottom line is that there's a lot of people on Facebook, and they spend a lot of time on Facebook. There's demographics young and old, and our clients are there, and we can get deals from there. This is an example of the fact that older people are on Facebook. This is one of our clients. My client's on one on the left, not the one on the right, although she could be a client, but she was the seller of a property that he got from Facebook, made $24K, but you could tell that she's not a young chicken by any stretch of the imagination. So our prospects, older prospects, are on Facebook and our target demographics. And again, there's not that much competition in Facebook compared to the other channels, such as direct mail, as an example, or cold calling. And again, this is a combination of not only the platform, that there's not as many real estate investors using the platform, but also at the same time, in the way we market inside of Facebook, that also makes a difference. And going out wider into a wider region is also what makes it less competitive, right? Because if you say, hey, if I said I want Facebook ads and I want to run them in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I don't care what anybody says, I want deals in Fort Lauderdale, then you're going to pay a lot of money for those leads in Fort Lauderdale. So you got to expand. And again, I'm just repitching this to you, that I think it's a great idea for you to learn online marketing, because it helps you in increasing your capabilities as a entrepreneur, as a business owner, which you're in the real estate niche, obviously. And I think that Facebook is one of the easiest platforms to learn that from. And that's really my second attempt at telling you, I think that this is really an important thing for you to learn from somebody. It could be from me, it could be from somebody else. I don't care who you learn it from. Learn it, because I think it's valuable. Now, Facebook, the reason why Facebook, Facebook has a lot of data, and people don't like that, right? That's how they know where our motivated sellers are. They have, this is 98 data points. There's probably more now. I took this maybe about earlier this year, but they're always expanding. Every single website you visit online has a Facebook pixel that tracks your activity and knows that you went to Zillow, knows that you're looking at flowers for your wife, it knows that you're shopping for a watch, and now some people could get upset about that and say, well, why would Facebook, I don't want Facebook to know all that. Well, it doesn't matter to me, because the reason they're collecting this information is not because they want to spy on you. The reason they collect this information is for people like us that want to advertise on the platform so we can target better. And that's the whole reason for it. And so why not take advantage of it? That's my take on it. And so again, the property owners that you want are browsing Facebook, and you have access to them. So I'll give you an example. This is an example campaign that we ran recently in Florida. We had $10.80 a lead, and we generated 50 leads at $10.80 a lead. We spent $540. This is targeting the whole entire state. So if we were targeting only a county, if I said, oh, I only want deals in Dade County, in Broward County, Florida, I'd probably be paying somewhere upwards of $40 to $50 a lead. So by expanding the service area, now we can bring the lead cost down. A general rule of thumb is that you want to go into this. Every marketing channel has its metrics for you to know, for you to achieve results with that channel. Cold calling, text messaging. If you're doing text messaging and you're sending out 500 texts, that's not going to get you too much. You might get lucky and you might get a deal the first 500, but you got to look at it and say, look, if I'm going to commit to working this particular model here, I've got to commit to sending over the next 30 days. I'm just making up a number. I'm not sure this is the right number. Okay. So let's say you got to send out 10,000 texts, 15,000 texts to at least know that, hey, you've sent out enough to get enough of a sample to know that, and gotten enough leads to make this work, right? And get good ROI. Same thing with Facebook. So my recommendation is you got to go in looking to generate 50 leads. You generate 50 leads, yeah, you're going to have people that are not motivated, right? As with any channel, that are going to be wanting too much, but it's a numbers game. And so you've generated 50 leads, then you have an opportunity to be able to get a deal done. The benefit with Facebook is that the cost per lead is very low. The other thing is that this runs in the background. So if you're working a full-time job, then you could have this running in the background, generating leads, and be able to operate this, as opposed to, say, if you're doing cold calling where you have to be on the phone, dialing away every single day. So there's a certain amount of hours required. You spend the time setting this up, and then at that point, it continues to produce. And, as with anything, there's always tweaking, changes you got to make. But, once you set up the foundation, it becomes a lot easier. The first thing you got to do is, if you want to advertise on Facebook, is you got to set up a business manager account. So you go to business.facebook.com, and in that business manager account, sorry, I was just turning off the ringer on my phone here. You have a personal ad account as an individual, right? You have a Facebook profile. You got to set up a business account. That's the equivalent of setting up a website out in the real world. So, in a corporation in the real world, this is the equivalent of setting that up in Facebook. So you go to business.facebook.com, you set that up. You're going to get an ad account. And then the next component is images. You need images of the type of properties that you're looking to sell, to buy, right? So for example, the image on the left here, the one with the house, ugly house with the door and kind of looking through it, that's an image that we use that we get leads from. This is another one here on the right that we get leads from as well. So you want an image that catches someone's attention. Then if you notice here on this ad, the different components, you see where it says Cris buys houses. So that is the page. We have to go out and we create a business page. I guess that slide, something happened to that slide. You go on Facebook and you're going to create a business page. That's the other component that you need. So you need the business.facebook account, which is the business manager. Then you need to create a business page, which is the equivalent of creating a website in the real world, but that's the equivalent of creating a website inside of Facebook's ecosystem. When you create the page, create a page that makes sense to someone, right? What's a page that doesn't make sense? A page that doesn't make sense is that you have a corporation and the corporation is properties like Prop LLC or Quantum Properties LLC. And you say, oh, I'm going to create a business page called Quantum Properties LLC. Don't do that because it doesn't mean anything to anybody. My recommendation is either you go really personal, like Cris buys houses, and you have an image of you showing up nice and smiling. That is the page. That's why that shows up there like that. Or you have a benefit-driven page, benefit-driven name to a page. Sell your Texas house today. Sell your Texas house fast. Something of that nature that then clearly articulates to the person when they look at that and they see up there, they're like, okay, I know what you do. All right. And so that's what you want. And then now you see the ad copy. So it says, is it really possible? And I'll give these slides over so that you guys can review them. But you have the ad copy here, which is just the words. When it comes to the ad itself and the words, the most important thing about the ad is the headline. So you notice at the bottom, right below the image, it says, need to sell your problem property ASAP, or sell your house in 1 month. That is one of the most important elements, because they're always going to see that line, regardless. They're going to see that line. So that's number one, regardless of mobile device and or placement. Then if you notice where it says, if you're interested in selling your house now with having a deal with showing it to the public, etc., the first line and a half of that is also critically important. So because what will happen is, you see where it says see more. Well, that see more will change depending on the platform that you're on. If you're on mobile, etc., depending on the person's mobile device, their screen dimensions, etc., they may not see all of the copy of the ad. So the first two sentences are always the most important, and the headline's the most important. You can see that there's a description there that says click right toward the bottom. It says click the learn more button to find out how much I can. That there may not show up on every single platform. So you got to keep that in mind. So the most important thing is the page, having a page that clearly articulates a benefit, a nice picture of you on that page. I always prefer, even if you have a page that says sell your Texas house, I still recommend you having a picture of yourself. Then the first 2 or 3 lines of the ad copy, specifically the first 2 lines of the ad copy on the description and the headline are the most important things, and always looking at different ways of doing the images. One of the things that you can always do, and a lot of the programs have this, is that you can take an image and then increase the contrast and the saturation. We use a platform called Canva, C-A-N-V-A, easy to use. You can sign up for it. I think it's $10 a month. You can take an image, upload it, and then you can change and tweak it. So one of the things you can do is increase the contrast and increase the saturation on the image, so then now it pops and it looks really vibrant on the feed as it's scrolling through, because really what you're looking to do is to stop the scroll. And then all the information is collected inside of Facebook. We use something called lead forms in Facebook. And then with the lead forms, that allows us to collect the information on the platform without them having to leave. They can do it on their mobile device, and as soon as they as soon as they submit their information and click on the button to submit it, then that information gets sent over to you. You can get it sent by email, by text. You can get it sent to your CRM, a variety of different ways. You can get that information sent to whatever system you're using. And in terms of a budget, typically, Facebook runs better with lower budgets. Even long term. So we include we like to work with a starting budget of about $20 to $30 per day, and then you can always increase that as you can always increase how much you spend as you're getting results. Many times what we'll end up doing is we create a campaign inside of Facebook for $20, rather than increasing the budget from 20 to 30 to 40 or 50 or 60. We just duplicate that same campaign, and now we have 2 campaigns running for $20, and that gives us better results than increasing the actual budget of the campaign. The other benefit to Facebook is also that you're paying money incrementally, meaning that, let's say that if say at the end of the month you spent $1,500 on Facebook ads, but the only way that you would ever spend $1,500 is that you spend 20 and you got results. You spend another 20, you got results. So little by little you continue to spend, because if you're spending 20, 30 bucks and you don't get anything, then you're going to stop and say, okay, what am I doing wrong? And you make adjustments. So the benefit to that platform is that you're able to really without, let's say, an example would be direct mail. If you want to do a direct mail campaign, typically you got to say, I'm going to invest, I'm going to send out 2,000 or 3,000 postcards to at least have a chance of getting some data to see if this is going to work or not. Facebook is $20 in. Hey, what are the results? Make some adjustments, another $20 tomorrow. And then that's how you run the campaigns. And the results can be fairly fast. If you put everything correctly, you know, the way it works is that you can go ahead and launch your campaign in the morning, and then by the end of the day, you can have leads. So for example, here, the campaign, this is an example of a student. The campaign was started in the morning, and then by the afternoon, he had 5 leads. Now, the greater you expand the market area, the better that is. So the greater the expansion of, hold on a second. What is it, Alex? I'm on a call. I can't talk to him. I cannot talk to him. I'm on the call, sweetie. You tell him to give us a call later. Get his phone number, okay? That's one of the things with working at home. Everybody always comes when I have a call. Always, without fail. Always. All right. So anyway, so if you structure them correctly, you can do that. Again, the benefit is also you can do that. I show you this just to remind me to tell you that we have clients that are running ads from Bulgaria, from I was in Israel last year when we were traveling. We didn't travel this year, but Israel last year, and we got an opportunity to I got an opportunity to meet clients that are in Israel. So from all over the world, you can run Facebook ads. Pretty much, you can do that. You can do all the strategies from anywhere. And then also too, I show you these slides. Here's from Greg Baker, one of our clients. These are 2 different deals he did. So this is something that can continue to bring you deals continuously, right? I'm not going to go through any of these because I got lots of these, and we can sit here all day with testimonials. So then let's say that we've selected a wide market, Florida. We put the ads in place. And so now what happens next? So the great thing about this is that it's an inbound lead, meaning that they do want to talk to you. So you're eliminating that initial conversation of who are you, why are you calling me, etc. Here, you're starting off as a welcome guest, and the process is simple. They fill out the form. Property owner fills out the form on Facebook. Then we typically recommend you text message the owner, reaching out to them to start off that initial conversation. You ask them a series of questions, and then if it's a deal, then you negotiate, and then you get the agreement signed. This is an example of typical leads that we get. I blocked out the stuff on the left because of the fact that these are actual leads. So they have addresses and stuff like that. So you can tell here, like for example, price. They'll tell us what price they're asking, time frame, when they want to sell. You can see a lot of this stuff says ASAP, etc. And then the reason for selling, variety of different reasons. Husband passed away, downsizing, etc. Here's another one here that we ran. Again, they tell us what price they're looking for. So the benefit to this is you get incoming leads, you get them quickly, and then you're able to quickly ascertain whether or not, hey, prioritize which ones are the best leads, which ones are not, and then you work them. I recommend you work all the leads, even though the ones that are not don't appear to be good, especially if you're brand new. You can use them as practice, or at least to kind of go through your scripts. Not that you want to toy with people over the phone, but I think you get my drift. And then the conversation by text is fairly easy. It's, hey, this is Chris. I'm responding to your message about the property at 123 Main Street. Can you tell me a little bit about the property you want to sell? And then, sometimes people will communicate with you, want to communicate with you by phone. Other times, a lot of times you kind of have to warm them up with text messaging. That's what I found. And obviously you guys know that. And because a lot of people will tell you a lot of things about their situation by text messaging. So here's one of our clients. He posted this. Basically, he's going back and forth to the seller, and the seller's telling him everything about his property and about why they're looking to sell. So be okay with extending that conversation on text, and maybe you get to the point where maybe you're now able to discuss price with them, and then at that point, then you can get on the phone with them. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I always give the example of my wife and I were looking for health insurance. She filled out a form on the website, ended up starting to get a bunch of calls. She would not pick up the phone because she knew what they were calling about, and she didn't want to talk to all those people. One person only text messaged her and said, hey, I know you're probably getting a lot of calls. If you want, I'm more than happy to give you a quote. We can go back and forth here on text messaging, and I can get whatever information I can in order to help you. She did that back and forth. Eventually he said, hey, it'd be better if we got on the phone so I can discuss these options. And he ended up getting the deal. Why? Because everybody else was calling, he was texting, and she responded, and now he went along with that up until the point where now he developed a back and forth relationship with her that she was willing to get on the phone with that individual. So keep that in mind. That it's okay. You don't have to jump on the phone right away. with someone. And then, in terms of the information that we get from the prospect, we just get property details, bedrooms and bath, condition, repairs, motivation, asking price. I think you guys know that. We don't generally concern ourselves with really figuring out the repairs that a property needs. A lot of people get hung up on that. Like, hey, how do I know this and how do I do? And, we don't really concern ourselves with that. We really look at more of a relative versus a objective analysis of the property. So we use Zillow and we use Redfin, and what you do is, if you're going to look at a property in a market that you've never seen before, you don't know anything about, first of all, you're not going to learn the market. So you're going in that area where that property is located, and you can easily go into Zillow, look at where that half a mile radius of that property, or maybe a mile, depending on the geography of that particular region, how far you have to extend. And you're going to look to see, hey, what are the properties that are active at the highest price points for sale? And let's say that, you see that, hey, most of the deals are active for $120,000, and they appear to be things in good condition for that market, right? So they're market value. And then you look for, hey, what's the lower end of that price point? And now you see that, hey, I see properties being offered for $85,000, for $75,000, $80,000 that are handyman specials that are being offered by banks. And now, guess what? You know the market. You know that, hey, if your property is close, then you know that, hey, you got to offer a better deal than what's out there on the market. And so now you say, hey, okay, well, if these handyman specials are going for 85, then that means I got to pick up this property for 75,000 or 70,000 in an effort to try to wholesale it and make some money from it. And then now, do you know what repairs are? No. But if you know somebody's living at the property, and as long as, generally speaking, the only times that it's concerned for me is if somebody says to me, hey, that property's been vacant for 5 years, nobody's been living in it, I don't know anything about it. At that point, I start to worry. But if they have a tenant and the tenant has been living there, or that person has been living there, then there's going to be deferred maintenance. There's going to be stuff that's required. And then you do the best you can with pricing, and then you allow the investors to then dictate and to tell you, hey, yeah, this is great, or no, I'm going to need it for less. I'm going to need it for this. And so then you have to end up going back to the owner for price reduction. And then once we agree on a price and we just agree with the owner to sign a one-page agreement, everything is done virtually. We use HelloSign. There's DocuSign. There's a few other platforms. HelloSign, I find, is the easiest one, hellosign.com. No affiliation with them. And then now once we have an agreement of a property on the contract, then at that point, now we got to sell it. Now, pricing is always the great equalizer. Whenever I hear someone saying, oh, I think I got a great deal, but I just can't find a buyer for it, it likely is that you don't really have a good deal. You think you have a good deal, but you really don't. Because if you have a good deal, then typically you'll be able to sell it rather quickly. All right. And so you want to be able to find a good deal, and then you're going to be communicating with the buyers in order to be able to sell that deal. Now, for pictures, we get the owners of the property to send us the pictures. If they're owner occupied, Mr. Seller or a Daniel, as part of our process, we do need to get, we work with a lot of partners on the ground because we are a national company. We buy properties all over Florida. And so then we have our funding source and our partners on the ground that then will go ahead and need to do a final inspection. Now I know that the property is going to need some work, et cetera. So I'm not expecting the property to be in pristine shape. As long as we don't go there and we see that there's a hole in the roof because a meteorite went through there, and then the cow went through, and not a cow, why did I say a cow? And the car went through the living room, right? And then now there's a big gaping hole, right? Unless you're not telling me that, we're going to be okay. And so then if you don't mind, if you could send me photos of the property, then I could expedite that and perhaps just make that process even shorter, and then we can get to closing even faster. So you can get them to send you photos. If not, there's a website called BPO Photo Flow, BPO, Barry, Peter, O, BPO Photo Flow, the most horrible web domain ever to describe, but it is what it is. Maybe that's the quirkiness of it. Once you get used to it, then you always remember that. But you can use that service to go ahead and get photos of the property if it's tenant occupied, or maybe if it's vacant. And then at that point, now you have the photos to be able to show to the buyers. And typically the way we find buyers, we don't have one way that works all the time. We have a few ways that then allow that work to get us the buyer through one or two of those, right? So social media, by social media, I mean by finding cash buyer groups in Facebook for that particular state. You can search like cash buyers, Florida, and you can find a group, and that's typically populated by real estate investors that are looking for deals. You can also post the deals in Facebook Marketplace, public records by going out and figuring out who are the real estate investors that recently purchased the property and then reaching out to them. Craigslist, that depends on the market. Some markets are better than others. Let me see, Craigslist. Agents, real estate agents. I forgot to put that on here. Real estate agents are also good. You can go on Zillow and you can see, hey, if you see properties that are rehabbed, if you see a property on Zillow and that property is for sale and it looks like it's completely rehabbed and it looks like it's an investor property, reach out to the agent and say, look, I have a property, I have a contract on a property that I'm looking to sell. Does property, I'm willing to pay a commission. Typically we pay 5%. So we pay them a little bit more than they would get. Obviously you have to work the numbers and make sure it's financially feasible for you as the investor. But we reach out to the agents, and through one of those ways, we find a buyer. I cannot tell you that, hey, every single time this one thing works, because every market is different. You're going into these pockets of market where you're not going in, you're not looking to, this is very important, you're not looking to go out and build a nationwide buyer list. You're looking to build a buyer list in that area. Now, if you do deals in that area and you find that, wow, there's a lot of demand, now you can then build buyers in that area. You can now go in and do text messaging to motivated property owners in that area, because now you've developed a small little presence there that now you can cultivate and gather deals. But again, through this method, you've been able to figure out an area and a segment of the marketplace that you didn't even know existed. All right. Now, in terms of the paperwork, once you agree with the buyer, I think for most of you, if you're doing wholesaling, you know how to do this, is that you agree on the price. You add the finder's fee on top, whatever your assignment fee is, and then we will then send the agreement to the buyer by email, again, using HelloSign. Once they sign the document, then we send it to the title company, and we close in a few weeks and get paid. In terms of how we find the title company, typically the title company we find by either asking our buyer and then confirming with the title company that, hey, I want to make sure that you're used to dealing with the real estate investors, done assignments, etc. If you're in a market that you've never done deals before, you can also find the local real estate investing club. Go to the website. Typically, they have sponsors that pay for them to be showcased on their website, and then you can go ahead and reach out to those vendors. Many times there's one or two title companies, and they're usually investor friendly. You can also communicate with other wholesalers in the area and see who they use, and they'll be able to tell you. So it's, at the end of the day, it's not that difficult. You just got to do a little bit digging, and you can find a title company that will do the deal, and we'll do assignments. No big deal. And my always advice is, this is just kind of a general advice, and I don't know how many of you guys are here just looking to get your first deal done, is that the most important deal is your first deal, always, right? Because that proves to you that you can do it. Because you see all these people out in the internet, they're making all this money doing all these deals, and you're trying to get one, and you're like, oh my God, maybe that's a fantasy world that I just don't live in. And it's like a whole nother reality. So the minute you do one deal, then that is validation that, hey, this is real. 2 to 3 deals now gets you to the point where now you understand how the whole business works. And then at that point, it's now continuing to do more and more of it. The same thing would apply to any sort of marketing endeavor. If you're doing texting, the first thing is just being able to get up and running and being able to generate leads, and then put yourself in a position where now you get a deal, and now you're like, oh, wow, look, I did a deal with text messaging. It works. I see all these people doing it, but now it works. Now I know it's real for me. Now it's, okay, how can I do the next 3 deals? Another 2 or 3 deals with text messaging. Why? Because now, by the time you're done with the 3rd deal, now you know what it takes. You're like, oh, I need to send this many messages, and I need this many follow-ups. And all of a sudden, now you have the framework. The same thing would apply here. You get your first deal, you get 2 or 3 deals. After that, now you understand how to use a platform. You understand what the metrics are. You understand how everything works. And now you've got a system down, and it's just a matter of scaling it and just continuing to do more and more. And again, I would say that the most important thing is the price that you put the properties on the contract for, because houses sell themselves. As long as you got a good price, then that's all you need. And if you can't find a buyer for the deal, then I would, then you just cancel the agreement. One thing I would say is that you always have to be understanding of what the seller situation is. If you're wholesaling and you're putting a property in the contract and you're really not sure about the price, and the seller's telling you that, hey, my house is going into foreclosure in 5 days, and I'm hoping that you're going to buy it because I need this to save my financial situation, and you know that, hey, I don't know if this is going to work out, then you either need to not do that deal, or be crystal clear to the owner about their expectations about what's going to happen, and to let them know that, look, this is not a for sure thing. Now, I say that because then typically what we recommend you do is you tell the property owner that, hey, we've got to get through the first stage. The first stage is us agreeing on price, getting an agreement signed. Stage 2 is us getting our boots on the ground to take a look at the property, confirm what you're telling me, and giving me the final funding approval. Once I have that, right, and that's your inspection period, at that point, then now I'm going to go ahead and submit the file for funding to the title company. And the only other obstacle there is if there's any issues with the title, but you're telling me there's no issues, so there shouldn't be any issues. What I want you to do, Mr. Seller, is I don't want you to put any deposits. I don't want you to go out and put a contract on a house or put a deposit on a rental property until I give you that final approval that says, hey, we have submitted this. I'm just saying that just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page with that. And again, you can do this from anywhere. You guys know this, virtual wholesaling, what I pioneered. And this whole model is done without, physically meeting with the buyers or sellers or inspecting the property, et cetera. And I think that's the end. So I wanted to open it up for questions. But before we do that, the big part of it is, again, keep this in mind. I'm not asking you to change what you're already doing. If you're doing what you're doing and it's working, continue to do it, because it would be like dumb for you not to do it, right? It would be dumb for me to recommend you not continue to do what you're doing. What you can do with this is look at it as another way to get leads, as a possible way for you to expand your horizons, to see like, hey, maybe there might be some other markets that might be good for me, but I just don't know what they are. And so a good example would be like, I'm in Florida, and so I ran ads, and I've never considered doing anything in Titusville, Florida, right? Because it's such a small market. All of a sudden I get a deal, I get a lead, I get a deal, and I do a deal. And then I talk to buyers, and they're like, oh my God, there's so many buyers here that really want deals, and there's a shortage, and it doesn't seem like there's that much competition. Now I can easily say, I can still continue to do the ads, but now I can implement text messaging, I can implement direct mail, I can implement these strategies to find more deals in that market. And so that's what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that you use this as a vehicle to try to expand your horizons, but still continue to do what you're doing, because all those strategies work. It's just a different way of approaching it. Does that make sense, Daniel?
That does. Yeah, that was great. And that was such a detailed training that you did. Let me pop my screen. But yeah, especially for those of you listening and watching, like, especially we've gone through a lot this past year. It's kind of pushed, and we're really forced a lot of us to think differently when it comes to our business, lead generation, especially when it comes to scaling. For those of you who want to scale to a new level, applying this strategy and kind of looking outside of your market, this is kind of that next level for you if you want to continue to grow your business and be able to help a lot more people. Because I'm in California, and I know in the beginning you kind of talked about California, and California is
right.
Crazy. It's like so many different demographics within California. I'm in San Diego, right above San Diego is Orange County, complete different types of people and how they behave. And then right above Orange County is LA. And just like you said, in LA, every 5 blocks is completely different. So
right.
It's a different kind of beast. However, being able to do, virtual wholesaling and apply Facebook ads, for someone like me, I could be able to run Facebook ads in all of California and be able to find, all right, which counties are actually hot right now? Where are people moving to? Because a lot of people are moving out of San Francisco and LA right now. Well, where are they going? Some of them might be just going to the county next door because home prices are a little bit cheaper, or you can get a bigger single family home instead of a condo in LA. So it's being able to easily find those patterns and where people are, selling and moving too.
I see we have some questions. You want to go through those questions that we have here?
Yeah, let's go for it. Well, the first question is, Wayne, what about location in Michigan? Obviously, I'd say go for it. You don't know if you don't try, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would select the entire state, right? So that's the, when he says, I guess what Wayne is asking is their location in Michigan. So you have to think about just targeting a wide geographic area. So you want to target either an entire state, or maybe if you're familiar with a couple states, maybe you have investor friends that are in Texas as well. You might do Michigan, you might do Texas, you might do Florida, combine those together to get a larger geographic region.
Hmm. Definitely. How much capital do you need for online marketing?
Yeah, so that would depend on your market. So you have to think of it in terms of how many leads should I target to generate? And so I'm saying you want to generate 50 leads. So the next question becomes is how much you're going to pay for those leads. And that would depend on how wide your targeting is. If you say, Chico, I want to get leads only in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, then 50 leads is probably going to cost you $2,000. But if you say, hey, I'm going to target the entire state of Florida, or then at that point, then the lead cost goes down to $15. So now you're in somewhere between 500 to 750. So you have to think of it in that way. So the wider the geographic region, then the lower your cost per lead, which means that the more leads you're going to get for the same price. So does that make sense, Daniel?
It does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you research or test to come up with the cost per lead at $10? And what kind of audience targeting, etc.?
Yeah. Well, there's no research that we did to come up with that number. It's just the number that we are able to attain, right? So, any of those lead cost per lead numbers are always there's always just from the data, right? We run ads this way. This is what the cost per lead is. In terms of targeting an audience, we do a variety of different campaigns. We do campaigns where we don't have any targeting at all. Where basically Facebook is crawling our ads. They understand what our ad says, what our and the nature of our page, and then they're able to make assumptions about that. And then we also have ads that we run where we take a bunch of interest and put them in there. Like, for example, an example would be you can put in Zillow, people that visited Zillow, Trulia, Homes.com. You can say look for people that are refinancing their homes. People that are looking to get a loan, and all those, you can put them all together into one group, and then have Facebook show ads to those people. So those are the different ways of targeting, and then also the question about the lead cost.
Definitely. How many market strategies should we be using?
Well, I mean, in terms of, my advice is always to, and this is what happened to me when I was starting out. My advice is to pick one strategy and do it well. So let's say, for example, that if you guys are here and you're doing text messaging and you're just starting out with that and you just are getting in the process of that, then there's no reason for you to do online marketing if you haven't even gotten to the point of at least getting that one marketing channel working and producing leads, etc. So I'm of the mindset that if you're starting out and this, even if you're starting out, and or if you're a small operation, then really one or two should be the max. Because so here the recommendation is, if you're using the platform here with Daniel, then you're up and running, you're producing leads, and you're maximizing this channel, and from not only generating leads, but that you're working it in the way it should be worked. And then now you got to the point where it's just kind of an autopilot, meaning that you don't have to think about it. You're just, running that every day. You're going to send this messages, either you or VA, etc. Then once you have that in place, then maybe you can then say, oh, maybe that's running. Maybe I'll bring in another channel. Maybe you might bring in the Facebook ads. But if you're starting one channel and you're just starting out and you're barely got it up and running and you're still trying to fumble your way around it, then there's no sense in bringing another channel in, because you're going to just now have your attention distributed between two and you're not going to do any one of them particularly well.
Mm-hmm. And, I would say a great way is for you to know, like, okay, when is that point to bring in another marketing channel? I mean, it's knowing your numbers and, knowing, because like if you start out with text messaging, well, you can only text so many people within a day, right? You can only send so many texts and then handle your follow-ups. So if you're going full speed every day, hitting your cap on the amount of texts, you're getting leads, you're getting deals, and you're like, man, I want more deals. Obviously, I don't have more time in the day. well, then Facebook ads is a great way to go and to continue to scale, because guess what, Facebook ads, you're kind of building, you build it and you kind of let it be. And then obviously you check in to see what ads are working and what not. So then that way you're able to generate even more leads by still working the same amount of hours.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of it for, does anyone, oh wait, there's more, I gotta scroll down. Do you see better results from Facebook ads using Facebook lead forms versus traffic campaign to say to a carrot investor site?
Yeah. So number one, so we use both. Lead forms are great because the lead forms are great because it gets you up and running rather quickly without too many other complications. Now, sometimes with a lead form, you can get lower quality leads, right? So you're always going to have a certain number of leads that are not good. That's what any marketing method generates that. It could be a lead that asks you too much money or whatever the case is. Now, first of all, you wouldn't do a traffic campaign. You do a conversion campaign, and you do it to a carrot investor website. And you have to gauge it. You know, everything always, you have to look at it as an experiment. I always recommend starting with lead forms, getting that initial flow of leads coming, making sure that you have all the systems in place, and yeah, okay, I got it up and running. And now you can then do campaigns that are sending people to the website. And then now then you compare, because also some of that also depends on, you know, what market you're, you know, how tight you're marketing, what your geographic region is, etc. But I would say you do both. I'd recommend starting with lead forms because they're the easiest ones to get started with. But then a mix of the two, it would be the ideal scenario. And then, you know, with the website, you are going to have a higher cost per lead than you would with the lead form. But then with the website, you are going to have a higher quality lead than you would with the lead form, because they have to go through that extra step to fill out the forms and go to the website, etc.
Good answer. I got a couple questions for you. Image ads or video ads?
I look at it as the scenario is always both, but I always look at it from a starting position. It's a lot easier to get up and running with image ads, right? Than the video. I recommend, like, if you're going to build out a campaign, then you want to kind of a mix of both, because you want to be able, there's a way to build a campaign so that you give Facebook, you know, 3 images and you give them a couple videos, and then you put them all together in one campaign and you allow Facebook to sort it out. But I realize that sometimes video could be an obstacle for people, both from, you know, mostly mindset thing. And so, you know, we always start off with images because at the end of the day, we will, you know, how do we get you up and running and operational as quickly as possible? And images will end up being the best. Videos also work, and videos give you more things to target, because you can say, well, gee, I want to target, let's say I want to run an ad on video, but let's say, you know, 1,000 people watch my video, and you can say to Facebook, hey, I want to go back and retarget and remarket to people that watch at least 75% of that video. So it gives you more options. A quick tip on video is use your phone. The most important thing about video is sound. You got to have good sound. You can use a lapel microphone. I bought one from Amazon for $24. You take one of these, you plug it into your phone here, and then you have great audio. So that's number one. Secondarily would be good lighting, you know, making sure that they can see you, etc. People are more than willing to forgive poor lighting, but they're not willing to forgive poor audio. So audio has to be good. And then, you know, 1 minute videos is great. 1 to 2, you know, more than 2. And what you can do is just keep it simple. You just put the video, you record it, hey, and just talk like a normal person. A lot of times people get like their social media voice, and they get all, you just talk like as if you're having a normal conversation with somebody. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And you can always record more, but just, you know, it's just easy. Take out your phone and say, hey, my name is Chris, and I'm looking for 2 or 3 houses to buy this month. I would love to help you out with yours, and I can buy the house cash as is, and blah, 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 you know, the deal. And you can just clearly articulate that, and you upload it to Facebook and you show it as an ad.
Definitely. It's just looking as personal as possible, right? Because everybody's scrolling through the feeds real quick. So if you can almost look as if you're one of their friends, one of their family members, casually making a video, you know, there's a higher probability of them actually stopping and watching. And another question for you, have you tried YouTube ads yet? I know YouTube, obviously this is going to go on YouTube. YouTube's kind of been a hot topic.
No, we're starting to test. Yeah, we're starting to test YouTube ads. We do also do pay-per-click ads. I didn't have time to cover it in here, but we do the same methodology. So the way that we do pay-per-click is rather the old, say the previous, the typical way of doing pay-per-click is you're selecting a small region, you're getting all these keywords, and then you're individually bidding on each keyword. And, typically you're spending a lot of money per click, could be $20, $30, $40 per click. And your cost per lead is $200, $300, $400 per lead. With Google, same principle. You expand it to a larger surface area, and rather than bidding on each individual keyword, then we bid on. There's a setting in the account in the campaign called maximize conversions. So we then allow Google, with all the data that they have, to try to optimize a campaign for us versus us individually trying to manage every single little detail of it. And in that way, it makes it easier. You would have to use a website for that. So the Carrot website would work for that. And so that's how we use Google pay-per-click. And we're just testing. We're in the very preliminary phases of testing YouTube ads. And as we do that, then we roll it out to our members as we have more information on that.
Awesome. Well, keep me posted, because I would love to hear the results and how that's going for you as well.
Yep.
But yeah, one last question, then we can wrap it up because of time. Any advice for a returning new wholesaler? Terrible at follow-ups and being on the phone once I get a lead. No deals wholesaled for 6 months this last year.
Yeah, I saw that. There's a problem here, because it's like saying, I don't know, it's like you want to be a fisherman in the Bering Sea, but you hate being on a boat. That's a problem, right? That's a big problem. So how do you solve that? If we piggyback on that example, how can we solve that issue? That you want to make money from fishing in the Bering Sea, but you hate being on the boat because you get sick and it just becomes a big mess. So what do? So the answer to that is you can't be on the boat. You have to be on the dock, right? So the example for that is because I can relate to that. I can't pronounce Quadho. It's an interesting name. I can relate to that because even though you and I are here together and I'm speaking to you and you say, I think Chico can put a couple words together and sound like a normal human being, I was horrible at the very beginning as a real estate investor. Why? Because I didn't like to talk to that many people over the phone. I was horrible at follow-up. I like to organize my CRM for hours upon hours to then finally call the leads, hoping that they wouldn't pick up so I can reorganize my CRM for the next day. So I know exactly what you mean. So how did I fix this problem? Well, very early on in my career, I ended up getting other people involved in my real estate business. This is a long time ago, but when I first got started, I went from not making any money to 6 months later making $110,000 in a single month. That's how quickly things can change for you and what we're doing. But at that moment, I realized that, I hate doing this. So I got other people involved. So I had, back before there were even the talk about acquisitions managers, I got friends of mine and I said, hey, I got all these leads. I'll teach you how to talk to these people because I don't want to talk to them. And they're like, oh, I love it. I would do it. So what I ended up doing is ended up doing all the back end work. So the majority of the deals that I have done in my real estate career I've done deals, but I've always had somebody else be the person that talks to the sellers and that sort of thing. So the advice from me to you is that you can do one or two things. Either A, you can force it, meaning that, I hate being on, so you're going to be miserable doing it. You might have to do that in the beginning just to get some traction, just to get the money in the door. But number two is you can say, well, gee, I don't like this side of the business, but I'm really good at this. I'm really good at putting together the data, putting together the systems. I'm really good at running the ads and everything else. And then guess what? Now you find somebody else that you can bring on that can help you. Could be short-term. It doesn't have to be a long-term partner. It could be somebody that you bring in and you can say, look, I don't know how long this is. I don't know if this is going to be a partnership for life, but for the next 6 months, I need some help with this. You can make some money. I can make some money. We can both benefit. And then we can decide what we want to do from there. And you work out a deal with them. And then at that point, then now you get out of the stuff you don't like to do, and they do the stuff that they like to do, and then they don't mind, and everybody's happy. So that would be my advice to you or anybody else who's suffering from that.
Definitely. And to kind of backpack off of that, a great way to start if you don't know who to look for, right? Is really find a good realtor. find a good realtor who's actually good at follow-up and loves going on appointments. Realtors love going on appointments.
Yeah.
That's why they're a realtor. And back in the day when I was a realtor, I was part of the team, and the team lead, 80% of the team's deals is because we worked with investors, and investors came to her with their leads because even though if they had an acquisition manager, they knew what they're doing, she was so good at the appointments because she just knew how to really talk and just get personal with the homeowners. So if there was times where they had a tricky situation or some leads that they're having a hard time following up with, they would go to her because they knew she could get the job done and she loved it doing it. So
it could be a realtor. It could also be it could be a fellow real estate investor who's also trying to get started with you, but maybe they're struggling and dealing with all the tech stuff. And it just solves that issue that you have right now of, hey, I need to do deals, but I can run the whole back end, but I just don't like doing this other stuff. And so don't fight it, because at the end, the problem is at the end, then it's always an uphill battle. Whenever we're trying to get to a destination in terms of a goal and an objective, and there's already enough obstacles in the way of that, getting that thing up and running. And then now you add on to that the obstacle of what's going on in here, that you dislike it, that you just don't follow up. And then now you start feeling bad about yourself, and it starts this whole chain of event that leads to nowhere. So I would say probably maybe consider finding somebody to help you with that. So now you can eliminate that obstacle. I'll give this. I'll leave you with this. There's two ways to deal with an obstacle. Either you remove it or you go around it, right? Sometimes going around it is the easiest way. I remember when this is pre-COVID, I was going to the gym, and this is the LA Fitness, and I was just so annoyed at the fact that people were leaving the weights all over the place. So every time you use the dumbbell rack, you had to go chase for these dumbbells all over the gym. So I started to attacking the problem directly. I went to the manager. I went to, and I called corporate office, and I complained and I complained. It just wasn't getting him anywhere, and I was just getting annoyed. So how did I circumvent the problem? I said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go and buy myself gym equipment, and I'm going to work out from my home. And so I ended up buying all the gym equipment. I prefer it much better. My gym commute is like 2 minutes, maybe that. It depends if I have to go to the bathroom before I go to the garage. But what I did there is I circumvented the problem. So think of it that way. Sometimes in life you get problems. You can either attack them head on and force your way through them. But sometimes it's easier just to kind of go around the problem. And that's what I'm proposing here and what you have.
Definitely. That was great. That was spot on. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching this. And Cris, if everybody wants to learn more about you, learn more about Facebook ads, where can they go? Where can they find you? How can they connect?
Luckily for me, Google knows where to find me. You can either Google my name on my YouTube, YouTube, or you can go to YouTube and Google my name, Cris Chico, and you can find my channel. Lots of information there as well. You can also go to flipanywhere.com, flip as in like flipping and then anywhere, flipanywhere.com. And you can have access to other trainings that we have that go deeper into what we discussed here today. And like I said, I know I've arrived when, if you misspell my name, Google will say, oh, did you mean Cris Chico? And I'm like, oh, yeah.
You made it to the top.
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, for those of you, if you're interested in his courses, I'll also, whether this is videos on Facebook or YouTube, I'll have his links below as well. But yeah, Cris, thank you so much for taking the time and dropping some knowledge on us.
No, thank you very much for the invite. And thank you everybody for attending and asking questions. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, take care, Cris, and take care of everyone else. See you.